to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to help lawyers find happiness in life with a law degree. Together with my guest, we provide the knowledge, skills, insight, inspiration, and encouragement you need to find your happy. One of the top questions that I get from listeners is, do I have any advice on how to figure out what to do next? They want to know if I have any tips or resources for figuring out kind of career and life goals. Because I think that as lawyers, we can often become so overwhelmed by the day-to-day tasks of our lives and our jobs that it can feel like there's no time to take a step back and really create a plan of action for our lives. And I don't think this is unique to lawyers, but since you guys are lawyers and that's who I speak to, I'm just going to say that I think that a lot of lawyers don't have a clear vision for their life. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I don't think I had a clear vision for my life for a very long time. And I'm not entirely sure that people are always taught how to create those visions. And for me, the process of figuring out what I wanted my life to look like and how to build that life really involved a lot of self-discovery. I did some coaching. There was a lot of informational interviews with different kinds of professionals. So it was a long process, but well worth it. And this month, I'm going to be trying to have conversations with a lot of different experts who really provide similar resources for lawyers struggling to find that clarity in their life and careers. So hopefully you guys can start to do the things that you need to do to feel a little bit clearer about what you want to do next. I'm starting out the month with a conversation that I had with Elena Deutsche. She's a career coach who specializes in working with associates to bring attention to their mindset and help clarify and set goals. On today's show, we chat about how she started working with lawyers, what a lawyer can expect when working with a coach, and she even shares a little bit about her new exciting program to help mid to senior level associates transform their careers. I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome back to the Happy Lawyer Project. Today, I'm excited to have Elena Deutsche on the show to chat about transitioning into the next stage of your career. Morning, Elena. How are you?
Hi, Akoma. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks so much for being here. It would be so great if you could just start by sharing a brief description of who you are and what it is that you do.
Great. Be happy to. So I am a career and leadership coach, and my background is actually in public health. And when my kids were about 3 and 18 months, I decided I wanted to do something else and add coaching to my repertoire. And I fell in love with it and have been building my coaching and leadership coaching career since then. So I help leaders at all levels and across different organizations become their strongest selves, leverage their strengths, and have a more fulfilling life and career. And in the past few years, I've been doing that more and more with lawyers. And I'm even focusing more on women lawyers and specifically associates who I've coached through firms and have discovered through the coaching when I ask them the question, do you want to make partner, that they get a little nervous and look around the room for hidden microphones. That they often don't want to stay and make partner. And so I'm building a new service for women associates who want to leave big law and figure out what it is they want to do next and take action towards it.
I love working with lawyers. I think that now that I've gotten past kind of the initial preconceived notions about what lawyers are like, I just find them to be such passionate, intelligent, just amazing community to be a part of. And so I was going to ask, why would you work with lawyers if you're not a lawyer, like don't have to?
Yeah,
but
no, sure. No, I'm happy to. My dad was a lawyer, actually. He was a criminal defense attorney and had a small private practice on the Upper West Side in New York City on West 72nd Street. And, every night at dinner, we would often have mock trials. And my dad was very into the fact that that everyone deserves a fair trial, right? And he really believed in the ideals of law. Yet it really took a toll on him and his health over time. And my mom became a social worker. And so in some ways, I feel like I have both of my parents' spirits in me, and they've both since passed. But I really feel both of them in me as I do this work of working with lawyers, because I love working with lawyers too. They're smart, hardworking, like tremendous work ethic, and really want to do amazing work in the world. So I feel a kinship to that. And yet there's this kind of social worky part of myself, and I'm not a social worker and I'm not a therapist, but I love kind of bringing that more emotional intelligence to lawyers to have them apply it to themselves in their own lives so they can create, like what you're doing, a happier life for themselves in their careers.
So you mentioned that your program is focused on women who are interested in leaving the law. Do you only work with women?
No, I work with men too, and I have great male clients, and I've had wonderful success with men also. But I decided to focus this program for women for a number of reasons. Like I told you a little bit, so last summer, I had just completed working with 2 women clients. And when I'd asked them that question, do you want to make partner? And they got, they shared that they didn't. And I was working on behalf of their firms and assured them that the firm wanted what was the best fit for them and for the firm long-term going forward. And then I shared a number of the career transformation exercises that I do with people. And they got clarity and they took action. And both of them ended up going to in-house jobs at great startups here in New York City. And shortly thereafter, I was on vacation with my family on Cape Cod, and I literally felt this idea like waking me up every morning at 5:30. And I would get up early and I'd start writing the ideas that were coming to my head. And the name Women Interested in Leaving Law. And I inserted the big in between leaving law in it, because I found that there are so many women who went straight from college to law school to summer associate to associate at a firm, and went up in the ranks and started to, I'd say around 3rd year, people start to I'm not so sure this is for me. But the pace of the life leaves little room for people to explore, right? Do you feel that from your own experience?
I completely agree. And that is true, I think, for men and women in the law who kind of take that path. And the people who do well on that path of really kind of having a clear vision for the next step. So I find that around 3rd to 5th year, when it becomes clear to them that they don't necessarily want to make partner and the next step isn't as clear, they've just spent the last 10 years doing the next step.
Exactly. And I just love working with young women. I think to me, I'm 51 years old now. So, women in their 30s, late 20s, early 30s, I just think it's a pivotal time in a woman's life and career. And it was for me. And I love to just help them figure out what it is they want to do and take the necessary steps to do that. And, women are often people pleasers. They often put other people first, not to disappoint others. And, as we see over and over again in kind of the legal media, just this past week, there was an article in the New York Times that, bleak picture for women trying to rise in law firms. And it's an environment that is not designed for women to thrive. Hence, I'm focusing this program for women.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of, on both sides, there's a lot of opportunity for women in big law, but there are a lot of challenges that women will continue to face until things change. If things never change, then that's that as well. But I can see the value of this type of service right now. And I would say that the number one question I get from listeners across the board, law students, junior associates, senior associates, male, female, is I think this is what I want to do next. How do I make that decision? I think lawyers really do struggle, especially those of us who were really good at school
Mm-hmm.
So we continue to have this feedback mechanism of good grades, good firm, good pay. There's all these things that tell us whether or not we're on our path.
Right.
And when you take that away, it can feel really scary to not know how you're going to gauge your own success.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and that's where a transition coach like yourself comes in. So I'd be interested in knowing kind of what can people expect from working with someone who specializes in transitions?
Yeah. And I think the people who you mentioned who are like, I think this is what I want to do next, I think that's awesome. They're already giving themselves permission to have those ideas and start talking to you about them. And I think that one of the first things that I like to stir up in people is their knowledge of their self and their curiosity, right? So like, what is it that they're interested in? And I recently had a client, one of the women in the pilot group. So I just ran a pilot group program for Will. And I asked her some of these exploration questions, and she said, I've buried those parts of myself for so long. Yep. I don't even know what I'm interested in yet. So I think what someone can expect of working with, me or a career coach who's a great fit for them is a couple of things. And one is to focus on mindset and I share tools in every one of my learning modules called Mindset Matters, right? Because your mindset matters so much in being able to make these changes, to give yourself permission to notice those inner critics that say, I can't, and can really hold you back, or you'll never be able to do this, or what will you do without the money? So some of those real limiting beliefs. So I do that kind of work with people, the inner game of mindset, and also the exploration, the deep dive of discovery of what are your skills. One of the things I have heard, like you said, from kind of like more senior associates who feel pigeonholed in, let's say they're doing a very, very narrow slice of legal work, and they've gotten very, very good at like this tiny little piece of, let's say, intellectual property law, right? And then they don't feel that they have transferable skills. So I love to explore with people, and it's part of my process, which I call EASE, which is elements. What are the elements that you want to have in your life in terms of, your skills, your interests, and your values, and the specific details of how you want your life to be. Do you want to, be able to live walking distance to work? Do you want to be able to ride your bike? Do you want to work from home? What are those specifics? So I help people explore those elements through a discovery process and then get clear on what's the most appealing possibilities. So that's the A in my EASE acronym, appealing possibilities, not just what you could do, but what do you really want to do? What are you inspired to do? And then study, right? There's got to be research, and you got to figure out if that's really a good course of action for you. What does it pay? All the kind of more practicalities, and then to engage in action forward.
There's so many things there that tickle me. The first of which was when you use the word, what are you curious about? I love that term specifically because I think people can get really overwhelmed by the idea of what are you passionate about? What do you, feel called to do?
Yes.
Because that feels so big. And yes. It feels so permanent.
Yep.
Everyone is curious about some things. Even if you sit down just for a little bit and you write for like half an hour, you'll find an idea that sparks your curiosity. And for me, it was calligraphy. Like that was the thing that kind of opened
I love that. Go ahead.
To the idea of being creative and just doing something for myself. Like there was no outside purpose. It wasn't like starting a calligraphy company or like I'm in a calligraphy like cute little coffee shops. It wasn't anything like that. It was just I've always loved handwriting. I've always loved fonts. I used to study Chinese and would spend like when I was little, I would just do the characters over and over again until they were perfect. So calligraphy was something that always really delighted me, but it just seems so meaningless, so indulgent.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just going to do it. My coach talked me into it. It was a couple of years ago now. And she was like, I bought an online course. It was like $100. I don't know why. It took me like 4 weeks to commit to this $100 like 4-week course.
Yeah.
When I would spend like $400 like retail therapy that only lasted like a week of like feeling better.
It lasted that long. That's impressive.
Well, that's how it took me to wear all the clothes.
Right.
And then I just felt bad because now I had all this other new crap to get rid of and take care of. But it was just amazing how it was something as simple as calligraphy that really allowed me to invest in myself, allowed me to make time for myself, allowed me to just indulge in something that just felt good.
Yeah.
Without having any bigger purpose.
I love that so much. That is such a great example. And I think that that's kind of the level of curiosity people need to start at, is just what's going to give me just like a little bit of joy, a little spark of joy today. And even, if people are feeling, I think I totally agree. I don't like to talk about finding your passion or even your purpose. And if people do in my course, of course, that's, the biggest outcome I hope for them that I would want people to have. But it has to start with, what am I just curious about? If something is really, if those passions and interests are very deep and your purpose and you're billing 2,000 hours a year, you don't have a lot of time to explore. So I love that, calligraphy was just like that little thing that got you going. I ask people just like take a deep breath. If you need sleep, do that first, right? And then start to ask yourself some of these questions. And one of the questions I love to ask people is, who or what are you jealous of?
Ooh.
And that gets people thinking about, what is it? Because really, jealousy and envy has such a sort of bad rap. But there's something underneath that, which is it's something you desire.
I love that question. I was actually talking to my husband about this the other night, about how I have a very dear friend of mine who we both started at the same firm. She was a year ahead of me. And it used to drive me crazy that she would get into work at 10:30 every morning. And I was so angry. I was there every morning at 9. And she didn't get in until 10:30. She would stroll in with her freshly baked goods, looking all refreshed. And I was like, this is not how professional people act. And so one day I asked her, I was like, why do you get in at 10:30 every morning? And she was like, well, because I have to walk my dog at 9. And that infuriated me. I was like, that doesn't even make sense. And now, I get into work at 10:30.
Now you get into work at 10:30 because you're saying yes to something else in your life.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting is we both still practice. We're both still lawyers. It all worked out. It was purely my own sense of what I was supposed to do.
Exactly.
And her not comporting to that sense that was making me so angry. And it was and we ended up being very good friends, and I love her dearly. But it was just so funny how much tension I created in my own mind between us because I was the good lawyer, she was the bad lawyer, but nobody was noticing it.
Right. And that was the story you were telling yourself. Also, you can't be a good lawyer and get in at 10:30 in the morning, right? And it comes from what those shoulds, right? What should you be doing as a good lawyer? What does that mean? And that's, something else I might ask someone to be curious about. What does that mean to be a good lawyer? And how does that look for you? And, what were you jealous of her coming in at 10:30? What was so irritating about that for you? So not asking you to answer those questions.
I mean, those are such good questions. And I wish someone had asked me because it took me so much longer to figure it out than if I had just had somebody there to be like, why is this really bugging you so much? Who cares? It doesn't impact your life at all. Yeah. And it's interesting how much when we cause ourselves pain, we feel like it has to be justified. We're doing it for a reason. I'm coming in at 9 for a reason, and that reason's a good reason. So anyone else who's not doing it doesn't understand these reasons.
Right. And I think that's, I think that's part of the, that's called cognitive dissonance too, right? You have to justify why you're suffering like that. And I think that's part of, sort of in some ways the tribal story of big law. right? And I'm an outsider, right? So I look at big law sometimes through a little bit more of an anthropologic lens. And that's one of the stories of, we work so hard, no one else understands. This is the culture here, and it's not really going to change. And of course, this is not every law firm. And of course, there's lots of people doing, I just want to do that little disclaimer, lots of people doing amazing things. But yet I think, it's a very, very, very slow to change culture. So, yeah.
You've touched on a number of the limiting beliefs that hold lawyers back. And I love to talk about these things. This is like right in my wheelhouse. And I think two of the ones that you touched on that we haven't talked about in the show recently, so I'd love to dive back into, is the one around money. Like, I have to earn this money. There's no other way to earn this money. Yeah. And this is the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah.
This is what I'm good at. I've put in, there's almost, and this is kind of the Venn diagram between the two.
Yeah.
I've already invested so much time and money into becoming good at this thing. How can I walk away from it? And no one's even asking them to walk away from it. So maybe that's a fourth issue, but let's start with kind of the money.
Yeah. Let's start with the money. And the money is big, and people have big loans. And I would never encourage anyone to make a financial decision that's going to be a hardship. And just to be totally clear, also, I don't consult with people on their finances. And they figure that out. And I share some tools and resources, but I let them really dig into that. And most of the women clients I have, like who are looking at, they're looking at their finances. They're really taking a good hard look at it. And I actually want to jump to the second thing, like if it's the only thing I know how to do, because I think that reinforces that I've got to earn this much money, and especially since I don't know how to do anything else. So, what I've seen is that often once women get clarity, and again, I'm saying women, but this applies to men too. But once a lawyer gets clarity on what it is they really want to do, what they're curious about, what they're interested in, where they want to really take that next step. And it might not be the end of the road. And I encourage people sometimes to take that next step because it gives you more options. It gives you a bigger vista, right? It might not be the dream job, but it certainly it's on the path in that direction. But what I've seen is that once people get that clarity of what it is they want to do, they often figure out the money. And not everyone, but they do.
We're good at figuring things out.
They figure out the money, and the money really becomes secondary. Mm-hmm. And I have a friend who left Big Law, who is now working for a media company, and I've never heard a lawyer say, "Oh, I wish I was still earning that much money." They say, "Oh, I'm so much happier." Yeah, sometimes the money's hard, but it's totally worth it. So I think getting that clarity and building the awareness of all the internal gifts and talents and strengths that someone has. That's once they open their eyes to, oh, I can take this and do this somewhere else and get paid for it too. They figure out the money typically.
And part of that story is disassociating your sense of self-worth from the money.
Yeah.
There is a sense of validation that comes with getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah. Never having been a lawyer and earning that much money through it, I personally don't know, but I think it's also just the sense of validation of having this career and this profession that everybody understands what it is. Mm-hmm. It's a high status profession. If you're working at a big law firm that's very prestigious, that's often also been very important to people, and it's very much part of the narrative of the firm too. And again, it's sort of leaving the tribe is not so easy for many of those reasons.
Certainly. And it's interesting because so many people do it. That's the way the business model is set up, is for more people to leave than stay.
Yeah.
Yet we make it so incredibly hard for people to do it.
Yeah. I guess that's part of the reason why I'm so into what I'm doing, is because it doesn't have to be that hard.
Yep, agreed.
I want to help people not have it be so hard. Let it be a little easier. And when you focus your mind on having something be easy, it changes. Then your brain is occupied with, figuring out how can this be easier. And so that's, one of the mindset shifts. that I like to help people with. And, I want to add something about women and leaving big law also. And that's connected to this kind of when people, because of the way the culture is set up and because women are so often people pleasers and don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Often so I did a lot of research before building this program and I talked to a lot of women. And one of the things I heard over and over again was, well, I don't really want to leave my group, or this partner or mentor has invested in me.
Yep.
And, this real sense of obligation to someone else over themselves.
Absolutely. I hear that all the time, especially from the people who were there as summer associates, have been there a really long time, and have had somebody kind of take them under their wing. And it's hard because you also don't know if you'll find that again, and it won't ever be the same. There is something different about starting somewhere as a summer and coming up somewhere early in your career. Like, you're just not going to have that dynamic. So I can understand why people would be reticent to let go of it. But what I've found is, since leaving my first firm, is the real relationships, they remain. I'm still really close to my mentors. I still reach out to them. They've been really pivotal in my decisions since then. I call them. They're always happy to take my call. So
Yeah. And that's a big thing that I share with lawyers, is that people outside of firms also, I'm glad you found generous and helpful mentors who you still have those relationships with. And I totally agree. Those relationships, if it's a true relationship that's built on mutual respect and cheering each other on, that will continue. But there's also lots of people out there who are super generous, who you don't even know, who are happy to help you and happy to talk to you. And it's one of the things that I really share, is that generosity is the norm, especially when people aren't counting every minute towards their billable hour. They're happy to talk to you, happy to get on the phone. So I think that's, especially for people who haven't done any job hunting and job searching, because they were on this, kind of fast moving, this rail of things were sort of put right in front of them, that it's just something I want lawyers who are thinking about leaving big law to know, is that there's lots of generous people out there who are happy to talk to you about what you're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often tell people who reach out to me and are looking for mentors that they need to think more broadly, and they need to start with who they would like to mentor them, as opposed to who's in their life who they think might be willing to mentor them. I think that's often kind of where people start from, is what are my options and which one's the best one, as opposed to what do I want and how do I get there?
That's right. And it's really important, especially if you're thinking about a job that's outside of big law and or outside of the law, that you absolutely want to learn more. And that's part of like that study and research phase of getting more information of what's it like and what kind of experience and skills do I need and how could I best present myself for this? And what's your life like? And, informational interviewing is something I share and focus information on. And really, it's just asking someone else about their life. And I think so often, especially introverts, find it hard to kind of put themselves out there to ask. But, it's just a one-on-one conversation, which introverts excel at. And it's a chance to learn about someone else. And people are happy to talk about themselves.
People are very generous with their time, especially if you are genuine in your ask. I think that for me, I am very happy to speak to people if I feel like there's an authenticity to their request. Sometimes I get these very canned emails that you can tell they've written like 50 of them and just changed my name. And that I'm going to get a lot of, what advice would you give somebody, who was interested in those types of very While I appreciate there is a value to that for people who are early on in the process, I just don't have time for that kind of engagement at this point.
Yeah.
So my advice to people would also be to really ask people real questions that you really want the answers to and are going to help you make decisions, and not just kind of go through the motions.
Absolutely. And I think that genuine and authenticity and kind of like even something heartfelt, like that if I was reaching out to you, I would listen to your podcast. I would I'd do my homework on you and share a way that you had touched me through your work. And that kind of like, oh, we're all out here doing our own thing and trying to connect and trying to help people. And, when someone shows that that something you've done has helped them, that helps foster a connection.
That's wonderful advice. And I would love, before we start to wrap up, if you chat a little bit about this program that you just started to beta and where people could learn more about it.
Sure. So I just completed a pilot program of the WILL online course. So WILL is Women Interested in Leaving Big Law. And I did a pilot with 5 women from across the country. They were in Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis, New York, and DC. And I took them through the EASE career transformation process where they identified the elements that are most important to them. So that's the E, the appealing possibilities that they now discovered are in front of them, and help them prioritize them, study tips, and engage in action. So I'm building that into an online course that's also going to have live elements with office hours and some guest speakers. And I'm super excited as I'm building it right now. So I'm planning on launching that in September, October, this 2017, and be happy if anyone's interested. You can go to my website, www.womeninterestedinleavinglaw. I know it's a long URL, but womeninterestedinleavinglaw.com. And you can sign up to get my newsletters, which I send out every other week, in a blog post, so you can stay informed as to when that's going to be ready. So I'm super excited to take more women through this process because my clients in the group got great results. 2 of them got super clear that they want to go in-house. One has already actually moved to an in-house job, which was super exciting. One is very clear that she wants to leave her firm, and she is on fire looking for a job in doing policy and advocacy work. And 2 are kind of taking a little longer round, but they're clear, both of them, they want to get outside of firm life.
I think this is a wonderful idea. And I think that lawyers, especially who are so busy, will do really well with having kind of structure around this thought process, because it does sound really intuitive, the kind of steps that you outline.
Yeah.
It can be hard to find the mental space to go through it. And so having that support and kind of a program to follow, I'm certain is helpful for your clients.
Yeah, and a community to let you know that you're not alone. And one of the things that I heard from the women in my group was they really appreciated the group aspect, and that the isolating nature of big law work for them has been one of the most challenging things about it. And that's one of the biggest things that they want to get away from. So building some community is also what I'm in it for.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the project with me here today. And the very last question that I like to ask everybody who comes on is for your thoughts on what you think separates those lawyers that struggle to find happiness from those who are able to.
I think the ones that are able to find happiness are the ones who are able to connect with that part of themselves that's not living by the shoulds, right? So they learn to tell themselves different stories, and they're open to sort of asking some of those questions. So instead of the I can't leave because, or I don't know what else to do, they start to think, well, I want to figure this out. I can figure this out. So they start to tell themselves some different stories, and then that puts them on the path to talking to other people and figuring out what's going to make them happy.
I love that. Thank you so much, Elena.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. Please head over to my website, www.thehappylawyerproject.com, for more information from today's show. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave me your thoughts on the show. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or follow me on Instagram. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to head over to iTunes to subscribe and review the show. As you know, each rating helps more listeners find the show, and helps me get awesome guests on here for you guys. If there's anyone you'd like me to have on the show, or if you'd like to be on the show, head over to my website and let me know, or send me an email at akoma, OKEOMA, at thehappylawyerproject.com. A special thanks to everyone who's left a review, sent me an email, or reached out to me in any way. I appreciate you. Thank you again for spending this time with me, and if you would like to learn more about working in your gift and living your passion, head over to the website for a free gift. Until next time, bye!